PowerPoint. And I'm excited to say I think this will be a very good lesson about an individual who I think we all know and love, especially during this time of the year. This is H.P. Lovecraft. I'm so excited. I hate this class. No, I hate you, Rickott. Shut up. Shut up, Rickott. Shut up. Anyways, welcome in, everybody. I'm glad everybody's here. Let me just say hello to everyone real quick, including my lurkers, because I know how to do that now. I can say hi to you, and you can't stop me. Hello. I see you in there. Hello to Hello to Blue Wraith 07. Hello to Moondog 8985. Hello to Nicosia PhD. Hello to Peepee the Fruge. Hello to Protam. Hello to Rickott. Hello to Sleepiest Tire. And hello to Sound Alerts and Sound Stream Elements, apparently. I don't know why they're in here. Hey, welcome in, guys. How's it going? I am so excited for today. I was hoping that I was going to do this with either Tolk or somebody else being on here. Oh, Mittix, hello, welcome in. Thank you for following. I hope you liked the history lesson tonight. Yeah, so sorry for starting so late. I got stuck in traffic. And I just wanted to say sorry again. But I have all the stuff listed here for our stream today. I just need to make sure I have it all written down here and put into my stuff. For some reason not wanting to open up. Uh-oh. Okay, weird. Don't know why it's not letting me use my PowerPoint now. Uh-oh. Please tell me I can edit this. Please. You've got to be kidding me. Is it actually going to make me pay for this? I hate this place. I hate Microsoft. Hate them with a burning passion of 1,000 suns. This is so dumb. Let's try this again. Oh, God. Anyways, how's everybody doing today? Welcome in again. As I have more technical...
He died unknown and penniless at the age of 46.
Yep.
A victim of the universe's cosmic indifference.
That's not true. He died of pancreatic cancer, actually.
But his work has inspired numerous short stories, novels, tabletop games, and cultural icons. And as long as humans feel a sense of dread about our unknown future, Lovecraftian horror will have a place in the darkest corners of our imagination. Want to take a stab at creating your own horror stories? Check out this video for some tips on how to add suspense to your writing.
No, I don't think I will. Thank you very much, TEDx. Hey, stop trying to play a video without me saying so. Hey. Hang on a minute. Wait a second. What's this one? Protected view. What is this? What about this one? Can I do it now? Can I touch my stuff now? My giant thing that I made myself? Can I create my stuff? No? Sweet. Okay. I love Microsoft and how I can't use PowerPoint, which used to be free on everything, and I can no longer add in things to edit or change it without having a subscription, which makes absolutely zero sense. But whatever. Oh, great. Okay. Smelly. Who you calling smelly, dude? You smell like seaweed and fish. Don't call me smelly, dude. Alright, let's try this again. Okay. Trying to log into Microsoft because they don't want to, but if you don't have to buy a 365 sub. Yeah, okay, buddy. Yeah, okay. You're so right, Halusica. You're right. I don't have to, and I don't want to pirate though. But you know it's sick that I can't freaking I can't even sign into this stupid thing without it saying like you need to. It's been working just fine for like the last little bit, and for some reason now it's like not allowing me to. Oh my gosh. Ooh, learning time. Hi, Beatrix. Welcome in. Welcome in. Now, right now, it is learning time. However, for some reason, I cannot log in to start my PowerPoint, so I might have to go on BRB for just a second. Just like the fact that Robert and HP are friends despite having vast different views. Send me the file and I'll convert it to a PDF. You can teach from there. Yeah, okay. Give me a second. The bigger problem is that I needed to update one part of the slide, so I might just do it the way that I have it here. So it's fine. We'll present it like this. Okay, students. Without further ado, let me make sure I have my script up here so I can hit my points that I wanted to talk about. I'm a professional VTuber. I don't know what you heard, but it's the truth. It's the truth. I'm a professional VTuber. Okay. Let me scroll back up here. Pull up a Word document first, obviously. Stinky Forge VT. Yep, true. Accurate. Yeah, that's a true statement. That's a true statement. That is me. Out. All right. We're just gonna do that again. Is that what we're doing, Gibbsy? We're just gonna do this today. That's what we're doing. Okay. I'm gonna have a separate thing for my sources because it won't let me update my sources and put them on here for you all. So. Okay. Where is the gosh dang thing? Display capture? Is this it? Aha! It is. Boom! And then... boom! And then boom! Okay. Okay, students. Make sure you're ready for our class today. Make sure you bring out your number 2 pencils and your pens. Make sure you're writing all these notes down because if I ask you a question at the end, I'm going to put your grade into the Discord. If you get 2 questions wrong, you're going to get an F. If you get 1 question right, you're going to get a C. And if you get both questions right, you're going to get an A+. And I'll be very happy with you. All right, H.P. Lovecraft. So, H.P. Lovecraft is the king of cosmic horror. Now, we're going to talk about cosmic horror in just a second, but he is known as the king of cosmic horror. So welcome everyone. Tonight, we're going to be diving into the life and legacy of Mr. H.P. Lovecraft. He is the man who gave us cosmic horror and the Cthulhu mythos. If you don't know what the Cthulhu mythos or cosmic horror is, we will be touching that later on in this slide. So over the next about hour and a half, we're going to start exploring his literary achievements, his personal beliefs, a little bit of his ongoing influence with today's works, modern horror, and pop culture. And yeah, let's go ahead and get right into it. So, when I say the word Lovecraft or Lovecraftian, what comes to your mind? Oh, I know this guy from Scooby-Doo. Yeah, he did. I think, did he have a Scooby-Doo mystery? I don't know. Maybe. That does sound like something that would happen. So what do you guys know about Lovecraft? What when I say Lovecraft out to you, what do you think? He had episodes. Okay, he had episodes in Scooby-Doo. All right, cool. That's the first thing that comes to you. About the Chargogothicon. Okay. Shaggergothicon? Chagargothicon. I don't know what that is, but I agree. I'm glad you're learning something through Scooby-Doo, at least. Lovecraft made an appearance in Mystery Incorporated. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah. Okay, sweet. So what comes to your mind? I'm actually asking you, chat. Like, what comes to your mind whenever, aside from Scooby-Doo? Anything else come to your mind? Whenever I say Lovecraft, Lovecraftian horror, Lovecraftian, anything like that? Perhaps, I don't know. Something in there. No. His weird gods and his fear for literally everything. Okay. All right, that's a good one, Blue Wraith. All right, anybody else? Anybody else have any? The Mountains of Madness, great work of fiction from him. Yeah, that is one of his writings. Cthulhu, correct. I would argue Cthulhu is his most important character that he made up, given the amount of influence it had over the culture. Only Scooby-Doo for Gibbsy. Okay. Dunwich, the Dunwich Horror. Yep. Mythology in a horror sense. Correct. All of these are right, guys. Great job. Okay, sweet. So, whenever I think Lovecraft, though, my thoughts always go to things like Cthulhu, right? I think like Cthulhu is this giant elder god, a giant creature from the depths of the ocean. He's as big as the planet is in some cases. He's sometimes out in the ether. He's larger than compare. We can't even fathom how large this creature is because we can't imagine in our minds, right? Well, we probably can today, but back in the 1910s and 20s, whenever Lovecraft was writing these things, a lot of these people can't imagine like how fathomably like large this guy is. They had just built the Empire State Building not too many years before. So imagining a creature probably twice, 3 times as large as the Empire State Building is insane to these other people. I mean, that was probably the largest building they've ever seen in the world, and still one of the largest buildings today. But that right there is one of the first things I think of whenever I think of Lovecraft. What else do we have? Eldritches, I think. Another one. Great work on the left. That is Berserk. Berserk had a lot of Eldritch influence, a lot of Lovecraftian influence for the 4, I forget what they're called, the God Hands, right? Which are like the villains in Berserk. All the God Hands are based off of Eldritch deities. This is actually one of the apostles that is from a foreign land, but he turns into like this giant flailing arm spaghetti monster type creature towards the end of the story, and he is what I think of whenever I think of Eldritches and stuff like that. Who is the E-boy? that is my friend Tolk. Tolk is an Eldritch VTuber. Shout out to Tolk. Hi Tolk, if you're here. Love you, buddy. Love you, Tolk. Anyways, I think Tolk whenever I think Eldritch anymore. Cosmic Horror. This is the other one, the big other one that I think he contributed most to. Cosmic Horror is huge. Giant celestial deities that can literally destroy the planet if they wanted to, being held back by the smallest restraint possible. Something so minuscule that a drop of a penny can end the world. That is what I think whenever I think Cosmic Horror and things like this. So, slightly off being absolutely Eldritch in reality. Yes. All right, so who is H.P. Lovecraft? Well, Lovecraft was born Howard Phillips Lovecraft on August 20th, 1890 in Providence, Rhode Island. He was a famous author, or is now a famous author, rather, and he's most known for his creation of the cosmic horror genre and the Cthulhu mythos, which he inspired himself and his pen pals wrote and expanded the mythos of this creature. He died on March 15th, 1937 in Providence, Rhode Island. Now, Lovecraft is best known for the creation of cosmic horror, which is a genre that in and of itself explores humanity's insignificance and essentially the vastness of an indifferent universe, right? So the universe doesn't care about humanity because we've been here for such a short amount of time compared to the expanse of space, and because we're so small on this little rock floating through the air, that is what cosmic horror is. Lovecraft actually spent most of his life in Providence. There was a brief stint that he went to New York whenever he got married, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But his work is largely, it goes largely unrecognized through most of his life. He's now become a mainstay and a cornerstone of the horror genre because he had a revival in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, which then expanded even greater in the 2010s and I think to the 20s now. And he's just become a staple in the horror genre now. He was the first person to essentially create some of this, and he got a lot of influence from sci-fi and Edgar Allan Poe and kind of smacked them together with like his love of science and really made a mythos, a mythology that had unimaginable depth for the time and really, really stands out different from everything else that's created during the 1910s and 20s whenever he started writing. So, I know him as the guy who wrote a story about the guy setting himself on fire because he found out he's monkey. Huh? What? I don't know what you're talking about there. He kind of looks like my horse in a nice way, bruh. Alright, so what's his early life like? Okay, well, so he was raised by his mother, and his aunts. His father was institutional, and both of his parents had mental illnesses. His father suffered from syphilis and had a really bad mental break whenever he was 3 years old. And Lovecraft's father, it was named Winfield Scott Lovecraft, was actually institutionalized at the age of 3, or whenever Lovecraft was 3, and he ended up having psychosis, which was caused by the syphilis, and he died inside of the institution. So therefore, Lovecraft's mother ended up raising him for most of his young adult life until the age of, I believe, about, I want to say it was like between 14 and 16, she passed away. And then he was just an unimaginably sick child, right? He was often out of school because he also had undiagnosed mental illnesses. And he ended up, a lot of people actually attribute this to his father lashing out at his mother because of his psychosis. And they think that it actually made him form a type of mental illness at a younger age. So, he would see like creatures at night, and they would be like hooded figures or something like that. It was, I think, at the age of 6, is whenever his first like really young like child mind started seeing these figures, and he would be scared to death. He would be shaken to his core, and his mother, who was very overprotective of her, or of him rather, would keep him out of school. And that isolation kind of made him a bit out there and different from other kids at the time, right? So most kids are going out, they're going to school, they're walking, especially in New England. They're going to very prestigious schools. They are, congregating with other people their own age. Meanwhile, Lovecraft is at home, and he is a sick kid, so he's, being looked after by a very overprotective mother. And what he ends up doing is he starts reading medical journals, actually. And he reads science fiction novels, and he reads science books, and he reads about all types of things. Edgar Allan Poe, which is then becomes one of his greatest inspirations later on. He loves these books, and because he keeps reading these books for so long, he ends up developing a sort of affinity specifically for astronomy. And the astronomy aspect of that explains so much about why he has this affinity for cosmic horror genre and the vastness of space. And there were so many new technological advances along with this, as well as scientific goings on about, we have the evidence that there might be a large celestial object out there that swallows stars whole. There's a large celestial object out there that is greater than we can even fathom, right? Things like this. It's the grandiosity of the 1890s, 1900s, 1910s that are really forming his mind about what science is. And so later on, we get into his high school years, and he starts having really bad episodes as well. And this is where his own mental illness starts taking a bear on his mental health, or his physical health, rather. And he gets pushed even deeper and deeper into this world of books and learning. And he gets really inspired as well at this time by Greek mythology, which is where he starts developing his mythos. And he starts reading some Gothic horror, and then plus the astronomy, and it lays the foundation for themes of the cosmic indifference, the cosmic horror, and other things that would now later define his work. And he actually wrote in a letter, he said, "I could not live a life without books." That is a quote from him. Imagine seeing the Hat Man at age 6, terrifying. I mean, honestly, yes. It's a terrifying fact. I mean, imagine being 6 years old and literally seeing a hooded figure that is not real walking up to you with a knife and then like expecting to die, and he's just poof, he's not there. Or having an episode like that. I mean, there was apparently stories of him possibly having epilepsy too, although these are unconfirmed from what I was researching. A lot of people did diagnose him later in life, apparently. This is posthumously, obviously, with schizophrenia. That's a big one for him. But this is actually H.P. Lovecraft as a young child. This is a photo of him from, I believe, grade 4, grade 3, something like that. All right. Moving on. So, after Lovecraft drops out of school, right, he's living with his grandfather and his mother at this time because his grandfather and mother are the two raising him. So after his father dies whenever they're very young, his mother is a widow now, right? And he is without a father. he ends up living with his grandfather. His grandfather plays a significant role in his life. I think his name was Winnefield Van Buren Phillips Lovecraft or something of that nature. I don't have his name written down. I apologize for my silliness. But what ends up happening is his grandfather dies at the age of 14, right? Or he. Ooh, whoa, new streamer. Totally didn't find you at Yap Surfer. Thanks, Star. Thanks so much. I appreciate you coming. So his grandfather ends up dying whenever Lovecraft is like 14 to 16 years old. I want to say it's 14. And his grandfather's estate is very bad. It's very bad off. And he ends up losing everything. His mother and him end up moving to a very small apartment because they have no money. They get forced out and evicted from their home. And he starts living in this really desperate situation with his mother as a young adult. And he's writing to pay the bills. So one of his first things that he wrote about was there's this really sappy romance magazine that comes out during this time called I want to say it's like the Agorthy or something like this. And there's a guy named Fred Jackson that writes for this, and he hates this fucking guy. I mean, he abhors romance in general, and you're gonna find this as a theme for him. He hates romance. He doesn't know how romance works, and later on in life, he actually has to read books about it to like get with his wife. But the whole point of this, why I'm saying this, his earliest writings are letters. So he gets really, really into writing letters and talking shit about people. He becomes literally like a ancient, or I say ancient version. He's a 1900s version of like an incel on 4chan, right? He starts writing to Fred Jackson almost like weekly, essentially saying like lambasting him, saying you write like a school child. Love like this isn't real. There's no depth to these characters. It's absolutely silly to think that people would ever engage in acts like this. Sappy love like this isn't real. We are all going to be lonely and alone. And this, like, literally just straight out of like incel manual, right? He's literally, whenever I picture the word incel in my head, I think someone like that, right? So, quick, what's the age rating for the stream? Guessing PG-13. Yeah, PG-13. I would say 16 plus would be fine, as long as you're okay with a little bit of cussing. I don't think I try not to cuss too very much, but I'm also a former soldier, so I cuss a lot. I vaguely remember that HP adopting a pseudonym. I don't believe he wrote it under a pseudonym. I think he literally wrote it as HP Lovecraft. I do know that he did ghostwrite for a time, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit, though. So his career really starts beginning as a fiction writer, but or not as a fiction writer, but rather as an essayist and a poet. He starts writing poetry around this time as well, inspired by Edgar Allan Poe again. As you can see there at the bottom of the page, he's heavily influenced by Edgar Allan Poe. I mean, heavily influenced by Edgar Allan Poe. It's very easy to see the correlation between these two. And he impresses a lot of people with his essays and his letters that he starts writing to Fred Jackson, because they're getting published in other newspapers, right? Or they're getting published in other journals and newspapers and stuff like this. And he ends up joining this thing called the United Amateur Press Association in 1914. People in this press association, I'm not 16, but I swear a lot. No, it's okay. He ends up meeting a lot of people during this. And some of his earliest friends are actually people who he keeps on with and writes the mythos with later on in life. So people like, oh my goodness. Oh my lord, my brain. August Derleth, Robert Bloch, Robert E. Howard. These are people that are in the UAPA around this time, or start joining it around the same time as him, and those three stand out as like his biggest friends for his entirety of his life, actually, until the very end. In fact, August Derleth becomes so influential to H.P. Lovecraft's memory that it's a shame that he is not remembered more for being how awesome he is, because, I mean, this guy's a true blue friend, and he meets him in the UAPA. He published a story, his first one, called The Alchemist in 1916. And The Alchemist is a short story, and and it wasn't really successful. It was very gothic inspired, right? He takes more influence at this point from Edgar Allan Poe than he does from like cosmic horror stuff. But The Alchemist does have elements of the darkness that we come to find in Lovecraft's fiction writing. And a lot, like I said, a lot of his early work is based on or focused on gothic fiction and essays, and as well as letters to people trolling them. In fact, he writes a lot of letters, and we'll touch on that just a little bit later. This right here is the United Amateur, September 1915 edition. And this is about a year and a half after he joins the UAPA. This is their newsletter, and this is him right there. And this is The Alchemist. This is one of the ones that was published after H.P. Lovecraft's death. I believe it was the 1970s, whenever that was made. Developing cosmic horror. Okay, so he discovers this magazine in the early 1920s called Weird Tales. And Weird Tales is a thing called a pulp magazine. So pulp fiction, right? These are over-the-top stories, right? That are how do I describe pulp fiction to people? I guess it's fiction that deals with really over-the-top subject matters, right? It's just out there, over the top. A lot like the movie, right? It's just very over the top, very gory, or if it's not very gory, it's super over the top, like love interest stuff, or it's super over the top action, just very like I guess hokey inspired stuff, right? So he ends up driving this like fascination. He gets really into weird fiction, and he ends up reading Weird Tales a lot, and then he ends up actually working for them later on. But in these publications, his unique brand of horror starts latching on, right? And it later becomes known as cosmic horror. But this is where his first depictions of this cosmic horror stuff starts happening. And during this time in the early 1920s and late 1920s, he starts developing some of his more major works. And I watched a video earlier that described his works of putting out the following three pieces, which are the Call of Cthulhu, The Shadow over Innsmouth, and the Dunwich Horror, as essentially the Beatles dropping three of their biggest albums back to back to back. That's how influential these works would have been if he had the same appeal back then as he would have now. That would be the extent of his dropping these three. So he drops Call of Cthulhu in 1928, Dunwich Horror in 1929. He drops Shadow over Innsmouth in 1936. And he drops a few other ones in between there. Red Hook, I think it was Creature Out of Red Hook, I believe it's called, which we'll talk about in a minute. As well as At the Mountains of Madness, I believe that drops in there as well. But his stories are really different. They're out there. And his readers kind of like it. You know, there's a few people who are very into it, right? He has a cult following, I would say. It's not super famous, like big cult, like small thing, like maybe like a webcomic that you would see nowadays that probably has like a few hundred readers. It would be in that vein, right? So, and it influences or emphasizes the human insignificance in an uncaring universe. Call of Cthulhu, right, has a specific passage I wanted to read, and Lovecraft wrote this, obviously. The most merciful thing in the world is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its content. And I feel like that's a very profound quote from him, for this, as that goes on to be what you see most in his work going forward. This is history class, literally. Yeah, you can stay. Yeah, of course you can stay. Yeah, no, everyone's allowed to stay, by the way. This isn't like, I'm not going to limit people for coming to read. I'm just, be aware, it's a content warning for your parents. If anything, if you're not 16 or whatever, just let them know you're watching. I mean, I'm not saying anything outlandish or crazy here. This is just history lesson, so you're good. They are like the Instagram reels of that time that use weird ideas for short stories. Correct. Yeah, that's a good way to describe pulp magazines. All right, so moving on, right? We start getting into the Cthulhu mythos, right? So it's introduced in the Call of Cthulhu in 1928. This is one of the artworks that's done on his books after he dies. All of his posthumous work is later done like this. But the Cthulhu mythos is arguably Lovecraft's most lasting contribution to the horror fiction genre. It really inspires other writers as well to kind of make greater content, right? So in Call of Cthulhu, the mythos features an interconnected universe of ancient godlike entities that are indifferent, if not hostile entirely, to humanity. There's people like Cthulhu, or I guess creatures like Cthulhu, Nyarla Thotep, Yog-Sothoth, and Azathoth. And they reflect Lovecraft's view of the universe as this cold and chaotic place. And his friends, especially those like Block and his other friend is Robert E. Howard, they actually start contributing to this writing, right? And they start expanding the Cthulhu mythos. They write their own smaller stories, and they start expanding it more and more and more. And August Derleth expanded it so much after Lovecraft's death that actually ensured that his influence on the horror fiction genre continued later on. But you have recurring characters, recurring themes, and it becomes this small hit genre in New England specifically around this time. I say hit genre, it's not really a hit genre. It's like very, again, a niche genre, but it becomes later on a hit genre. So moving on. Key themes in Lovecraft's works, right? What are the key themes? The first one is cosmic indifference, which is that the universe is vast and uncaring. Existential dread, which is humanity's fragility and insignificance. Forbidden knowledge, which is humans encountering knowledge they cannot comprehend. And the last one is fear of the unknown, the terror of what lies beyond human understanding. At the heart of his stories are these four ideals. And in Lovecraft's own words, the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear. And the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. And I wanted to touch on this just a tad bit because of Lovecraft has a very, very bad rap today because of his out and out anti-Semitism and racism that he touches on later in his life, or not even later in his life, it's throughout his life. A lot of his letters and some of his works have very grotesque language and describing peoples of different races. He is an Anglophile, which means he is caring only for Anglo-Saxons, and specifically Anglo-Saxon Protestants. He was a WASP. He was a member of a few different organizations that were pro-WASP. And even though he's like that, right, he has this other, and I think I would attribute that to mental illness especially, but he has friends that are not WASPs. In fact, he goes out of his way to, at the time he moves to New York, I mean, he literally moves in with a Jewish Russian woman, and they're married, right? So his friend Robert Block is also a Jewish man. And which is it's ironic, right? Because he has this whole theme of fear of the unknown. A lot of people try to pick his mind and give reasons to why he is the way he is, and I think a lot of people attribute his thinking about other cultures and other races with this idea that he doesn't understand them. And I don't know if that's the greatest thing to do to someone like Lovecraft because of his mental illness, especially considering at the time the thoughts and connections with people of other classes, religions, and ethnicities, especially in New England, are very, very different from the rest of the United States at this time. New England had this very odd form of racism that wasn't just like directed at just different skin tones. It was also like Irish people and Italians and Germans and like other peoples like this. It's very odd, very New England form of racism. It's interesting to look into if you've never heard about it. But Lovecraft is also from this like very old lineage of people. The Phillips family specifically is one of the oldest families in New England, and he becomes a part of it, and is a poor member of it, but he still sees himself as upper class, even if he's poor because of his birth heritage that he's been given, his blood, essentially. And so I wanted to talk on this a little bit because the key themes, right, is fear of the unknown. A lot of people, including myself, I think it's ironic given that he doesn't know much about other peoples and has this theme because he's afraid a lot of times of xenophobia, or he's afraid of people, so he's like more xenophobic, more racist, or whatever. It's something interesting I was thinking about whenever I was writing this. I was like, it's ironic that he fears the fear of the unknown is the oldest kind in or the strongest and oldest kind of fear is the fear of the unknown, which is ironic coming from him because I think he actually does fear the unknown, which is probably why it influenced his writing so much in the way that it did. All right, moving on. The Horror at Red Hook. So this is a case study. So The Horror at Red Hook is one of Lovecraft's most controversial works. It was written during his time in New York. He had been married at this time to Sonia Green, who was a Jewish woman from or a Russian Jew, and they hit it off because of a UAPA. She went to one of their events after his mother passed away. I think it was about a month or two, and they ended up hitting it off right away. He moves to New England, or excuse me, from New England to New York, from Rhode Island, Providence specifically, out of his aunt's house, because he's living with his aunts at this time, because his mother got very ill, and his aunts were very, I think the best word for it were awful to him. And he's been making his entire fortune, or his what little money he has, based off of the times and the things that I've read, from ghostwriting other people's works and picking up certain other gigs outside of writing his novels. And he moves to New York during this time. And specifically, The Horror at Red Hook is reflective of his xenophobia and fear of immigrants. And it's often expressed in letters to friends, as I touched on before, his disgust and hatred of immigrants and foreigners and people who are different from him, right? The story revolves essentially around a detective that uncovers occult activity in an immigrant neighborhood, and it really reflects Lovecraft's discomfort with urban diversity. And I would say the urban environment as well. I think specifically Lovecraft has this deep hatred of large cities. He finds them very disgusting. He doesn't like the multiculturalism that is reflected within these cities, especially New York at this time, because this is where large waves of immigrants start coming into the country around like 1870 to 1890, into the early 1900s. And a lot of critics have actually noted that this story exemplifies how Lovecraft's personal fears and prejudices were actually deeply woven within his fiction, which is something I touched on earlier. He describes a lot of the people in this as like having swarthy tones, and a lot of people say like swarthy tone means like it's a darker complexion of persons. So Lovecraft is definitely not without his faults. So just take that into account whenever you're looking at his works and stuff like that. It's not something that you should, I would argue, really super focus on with his work, because I think his work is so influential that it kind of transcends the man himself at this point. So again, take his background with a grain of salt if you're into that. But for me, I think Lovecraft is so influential to what he does that it really, really doesn't change my outlook on his work itself. And I know not a lot of people are like that. I understand that. That's just me personally. But anyways, let's move on to Lovecraft's personal views and controversies. Aside from the Red Hook incident, let's redeem this water real quick. Thank you, Sleepy. And let me read chat this real quick. I find it interesting that despite the idea of the value of ignorance to a much bigger horror, he valued civilization as a high point for humanity, unlike Robert E. Howard, who thinks civilization is holding humanity back. I think I vaguely remember that one of the reasons why oceans are a recurring theme was because of how old and ancient the ocean is, though I'm not sure of this info. I believe you're right. People seem to overlook that over time, his friends and wife tried to help him with his mental health. His prejudice views were loosened over time. That's correct. So I will touch on this as well. So, again, this is what Lovecraft, a lot of his legacy is tied in with this right now. And I have the quote from him earlier: the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is a fear of the unknown. Lovecraft, once he got to know you, and if you were a friend of his, he was extremely loyal. He was a very loyal person, even to his wife, up until a certain point. And Lovecraft ends up meeting his wife, as I said, at the UAPA function after his mother dies, and he becomes deeply, deeply uncomfortable with the city. Writes the creature at Red Hook, or the horror at Red Hook rather. And Lovecraft's personal views, particularly about, or particularly his racism and his xenophobia, have been a huge subject of intense scrutiny in recent years. Right, his letters are filled with derogatory comments about non-white people, immigrants, people of different religious affiliations. He reflects on his time in New York with hatred. He has a huge welling of anger as well at this time. Good morning, Mr. Yap. Hello, welcome in. You're my favorite artist. Hi, Yap. But Lovecraft's entire thought process, right, changes whenever he gets to know you as a person. And I think this is actually ironic, because I think this is how a lot of people are. Once they get to know somebody who's not what they seem to be, if you're like really thinking about like a group of people, if somebody actually meets someone from a group of people and they're like this, I think a lot of the times they soften a bit. And I think the biggest example of this is Sonia Green. So Sonia, as I said before, is Jewish, right? She's also Russian, so she's not of a Anglo-Saxon variety of white. So he softens to her very quickly, actually. Their life together is not filled with great horror. It's filled with a lot of love and affection, according to a lot of sources. Sonia ends up taking Lovecraft, who I would argue is somewhat more of a... Is it Bring My Plush to Work Day? No, it is. It's my comfort plush, actually. Ray is my comfort plushie. But his wife ends up opening his soul a little bit. And he bears his heart to her, and he goes from like this weird loner incel to being a family man and caring for Sonia and becoming essentially a more kind and caring version of himself, and it softens him a lot. And I think with if it was given more time to fester, I think his views entirely would have changed, and we wouldn't have this discussion about him. But Sonia is the woman who changes him from like this uncaring, unfeeling guy into someone who thinks a little bit more deeply about like, what are my thoughts on this? What are my thoughts on this other thing? Like, how do I feel about this actually? And she opens up his mind, right? Because he's like, well, Sonia's Jewish, and she doesn't act like other Jewish people that I think they act like. So maybe they don't all act like that. Maybe I should change my viewpoints on this. And it starts opening up his mind a little bit. And even though his racist beliefs start holding, he changes and softens a lot on this. And I think a big one, too, is whenever Hitler took power in Germany, he was actually openly supportive of Hitler. And it wasn't until, I believe, a friend of his, I want to say it was actually Robert E. Howard, I believe, went over to Germany. He said that he witnessed, I think it was him, it was one of his close friends, said that he actually witnessed Jewish beatings in the street, that Lovecraft actually said he despised Hitler. He renounced them entirely afterwards, after hearing that. And I think that's very commonplace with how he is with his friends, right? Robert Bloch, who's another great friend of his, is Jewish. Sonia Green, his wife, is Jewish. So hearing that happening, I think changes his viewpoints on how these people are being held in his mind. Like I said, I think if you give it a little bit more time, Lovecraft would have softened into a person that is more open with his ideals and his views on racial and ethnic belief systems, which never got to see because he unfortunately passed away so early. But interesting tidbit of history. I just wanted to touch on it a little bit. Sonia and him actually never get divorced, but he does move back because he hates New York so much that he actually moves back to Providence. And him and Sonia, the only thing though is that his aunts who are still living in Providence, he moved back in with them, and they say that Sonia can no longer live with them because she is of lesser caliber of human than they are, essentially. And he does not see his wife, I believe, after 1931 or 2, I believe. And she starts getting very ill as well around this time, so he can't help her with her business. She's actually like a hat woman, like she like makes hats and stuff, and she writes on the side. But she becomes ill, and then he never sees her again after he moves back to Providence, unfortunately. So, Lovecraft's writing style is very interesting as well. Lovecraft's writing style is one of the most distinctive aspects of his work. He often uses formal and archaic language that it feel very stilted and overly complex to a lot of modern readers. And I think Protam actually said something about that in the chat earlier, which is funny. He uses very large words, and often he uses them in a way that is not exactly how you would imagine somebody who doesn't have a formal high school education to write, but it's because his love of reading made him write so well. And this kind of language creates its own unique style, and it kind of gives an otherworldly atmosphere in the stories, and enhances the feeling of unease because his writing and his way he writes makes it very grandiose and very ethereal, like some type of ethereal being is like writing and showing the story to us. Lovecraft actually prefers to suggest horror rather than actually describing it directly as well. So whenever he's describing a creature, right, he often describes it as like a non-Euclidean thing. So if you know what Euclidean versus non-Euclidean is, Euclidean is like naturally occurring shapes and things. So like a dog is a Euclidean figure, a triangle is a Euclidean figure, versus a non-Euclidean figure, which is something that is non-made. I believe that's right. I'm trying to remember non-Euclidean. Hang on, let me look up the definition, make sure I'm not looking like a total fool. Pardon me. One second. Okay, so non-Euclidean is actually like principles of geometry. It like doesn't go with principles of geometry. Like, or the principle of geometry called Euclidean geometry, which is a more how do I describe it? Spear, like giant spires that like go up to a very tall point that are like jagged and like kind of like curve and like do all these other types of things. I feel when I learned Euclidean from Blender, thank you, Art, once more. Literally, yeah, I'm horrible at describing Euclidean versus non-Euclidean, apparently. It's more like flat. Like Euclidean's flat things versus a non-Euclidean would be like spherical or hyperbolic. They're very convex, converse shapes. So a saddle is like a kind of non-Euclidean thing. A large sphere that has like a bunch of like cuts and things like that in it is a non-Euclidean sphere, or a non-Euclidean thing, versus a Euclidean space is like flat, very flat. So a lot of his stuff makes non-Euclidean geometry like a center point of his work. He describes things very interestingly. Tentacles, a lot of the time he has a lot of fish because he's from New England. A lot of fish in his stories, and it's a very big emphasis on alien and the unknown. Space, right? The deep ocean. We don't know much about the deep ocean. Antarctica, which is one of his brand new things that comes up in one of his magazines early in his life. They just discovered the North Pole in Antarctica. They sent an expedition. They found a bunch of dead people up here. It's like, oh, it's cool. It's different. I don't know what's going on. These things like this are what drives him to become the writer that we now know him to be. So it leaves a lot to the reader's imagination to come up with a thought in their head of, okay, what am I seeing here? What is Cthulhu? What does he look like? He describes him very vaguely. So a lot of people start tending towards making up crazy looking shapes whenever they're describing these creatures. They become giant tentacle monsters, and they become their own art form, essentially. And I think Cronenberg is, I think, one of the people that's influenced by his writing style a lot. Because whenever you think Cronenberg is like very weird looking monster creatures. And he writes a lot in the same way as Lovecraft does. So, Lovecraft's letters and correspondence. So he wrote over 100,000 letters to friends and other writers. He is second in his writings, only to Voltaire, by the way. Voltaire is the only other human on Earth that has wrote more letters than H.P. Lovecraft did, at least according to our knowledge. Lovecraft's letters offer a very unique window into his own mind and his thoughts on things. He corresponded with hundreds of writers and a lot of friends. He provided them with critiques of their work, detailed discussions on his own writing processes, and we learned a lot about him through this. A lot of the times whenever we start thinking about Lovecraft, we read through his letters that he wrote to Robert E. Howard and Robert Bloch, and these people become integral into his little group of friends, which is part of the Cthulhu mythos. And yeah, these letters is where we get his philosophical views, where we find out about his more rabid racism, his fascination with the unknown, and his letter specifically to Robert E. Howard, who is the creator of Conan the Barbarian, by the way, and he's also the person who popularized sword and sorcery genre. If you don't know what that is, you should look up the sword and sorcery genre. Very cool. It reflects his ongoing desire to explore the fringes of reality through fiction. Right? Lovecraft actually once said in one of his letters, "I have not seen the dawn of time nor the sunset of infinity, but I have written about them," which is very cool. Little thing from him. And these correspondences are crucial to building the literary circle that he does, that expands into the Cthulhu mythos. Okay, so from left to right, we have Robert Bloch right here. Robert E. Howard is in the middle. And this right here is August Derleth. So if you don't know who Robert Bloch is very famous as well. Robert Bloch is the man who makes the novel that the movie Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock is based off of, actually. He also is very, very influential in the horror genre at this time. And he is huge friends with H.P. Lovecraft. They're very good friends, as well as Robert E. Howard. Robert E. Howard wrote, as I said, Conan the Barbarian and popularized the sword and sorcery genre. He ends up taking his own life, and it's very, very detrimental to Lovecraft's health later on in his life. And August Derleth, without him, there would be no H.P. Lovecraft to talk about nowadays. August Derleth is a very, very important friend, and these four maintain a very strong friendship throughout their entirety of their careers. Very, very important people to Mr. Lovecraft. So, financial struggles and later years. So for most of his life, he lived in poverty, right? He relied solely on the support from his friends and family to live. He returns to Providence in 1926 after a very brief and unhappy stint in New York with his wife, who was there with him. And as I said before, his wife is left in New York, and he does not see her again for the 10 years that he's alive after that. 11 years alive after that. And he ends up not being able to bring her back because his aunts would not let him. Despite his growing reputation in the world of fiction, Lovecraft never really finds any financial success during his lifetime, right? So he gets a lot of gigs ghostwriting for people throughout his 1920s and 1930s. Specifically, the most important thing that I found, or the most interesting thing that I found, he actually ghost wrote for Harry Houdini under a pseudonym. And Harry Houdini is, I believe it was a biography or something like that. And he wrote for him under that pseudonym and actually pretended to be Harry Houdini. And he made only a small amount of money for that. Harry Houdini did not actually pay very well for this, and he thought it would be a big break because Harry Houdini was very famous at this time. But I think it was like Houdini died shortly thereafter from a ruptured appendix, I want to say. and he ended up not getting to see really any return on investment for that. He relied on a very small inheritance from his grandfather and his father, and then his mother, and then later on his one of his aunts died, and then his other aunt died. Hoping that he could kind of live off of that and the generosity of his friends to make ends meet, and he ends up moving back into a small apartment in Providence with his aunt. Once his other aunt dies, him and his living aunt live very modestly until she passes away, and then he ends up living in that apartment in squalor. He ends up eating like old tins of food and stuff like that. It's like very, very bad. Whenever he can afford to pay for food, he does. But sometimes he goes a day or two without eating. And it turns into a very sad situation, especially given that he probably could have lived in New York with his wife a little bit longer and could have possibly turned it around. But because of his mental health situation, plus his, his very heavy mental health situation, plus his very heavy poverty, it really left him without a lot of options. And it's very sad to see. But after he returns to Providence in 1926, he wrote most of his stories. Right? He wrote Shattered Over Innsmouth. He wrote At the Mountains of Madness. And he remained in very poor health. And he started writing in his notes around 1934 about this thing called the grip. And it's spelled Grippe. The grip is what we now know to be his intestinal cancer that he then develops. And whenever he's writing about it, he says that this affliction has been terrorizing him for the last couple of months, and then it becomes a year or two, and he ends up going into a hospital. I forget what the hospital is. It's one of the main ones in Providence. And he ends up passing away in 1937 of pancreatic cancer. Intestinal cancer. Pardon me. But he's very unknown at this time, right? So he has no money. The only gravestone he can afford is like this very piddly small one. And his work would start to gain some posthumous fame, right? So let's talk about that a little bit. So posthumous recognition. Lovecraft's work gained recognition after his death thanks to efforts by his friends like August Derleth. August Derleth is so important to this. August Derleth forms a thing called Arkham House. And what Arkham House is a publishing company that has every single one of Lovecraft's works of fiction. They were left to him by Lovecraft himself. And he dedicates his entirety of the rest of his days to keeping Lovecraft's work in print alive. Because, as I said, his friend, Robert E. Howard, had already taken his own life and stuff like that. So a lot of this work he wanted to do for Robert and for Howard because they were his friends. They were very close friends of his. And August, Robert, and Mr. Block, Robert Block and Robert E. Howard all loved HP's work. I mean, whenever they read Call of Cthulhu and Mountains of Madness and all these other works that he did in the 1920s and 30s, they were blown away by his writing style, and they were so surprised that it didn't take off that they actually thought he would be a bigger writer than they were. And there's a lot of correspondence that they write to him, essentially glazing him for his writing ability. And it's very, very sweet to read. They are great friends to him throughout his entire life, and it's very sad that what happened to Robert Howard later on in life, because I think it actually affected Lovecraft to the point where he started developing a lot more issues, especially his mental issues. But once August develops the Arkham House Publishing, he keeps these works, he prints them out, he starts sending them out. Advanced copies don't sell very well, though. It's about 150 copies total. But at this time, right, World War II is starting to get into effect, right? So what he ends up doing is after World War II, he prints a bunch of different variations of the works that Lovecraft wrote. He starts doing stuff in French and Spanish and Italian, German, Russian, all these different languages. and he starts sending them out to these other areas of the world. Well, it gets really big in post-war France. Post-war France, it becomes huge. I mean, gigantic. And it takes off. And in the 1950s, it really takes off. Because Robert Bloch is now famous. He can start talk more about H.P. Lovecraft, because guess what happened in the 1950s? That's when Psycho became a very big movie. And so he starts talking about it in public, that his relationship with Lovecraft is what inspired him to become a writer, and what helped him get to the writing style that he wanted to get to. And then Robert Bloch takes that a step further with August Derleth, and they start promoting even more of the Cthulhu mythos, unreleased works from H.P. Lovecraft that he never got to put out, unreleased works from Robert E. Howard, and they start building up this large catalog of very impressive works from all four of them, and they make it a series called The Complete Works of H.P. Lovecraft, and it starts selling like hotcakes. The 60s and 70s especially, it gets really, really big. You have movies like The Thing that come out in the 80s that are huge and heavily influenced by the Mountains of Madness. You have other works like Batman, actually, funnily enough, in 1976, they go to Arkham House Publishing and they say, hey, we would like to buy the rights to the name Arkham Asylum, which is in one of his books, and that is where the Arkham Asylum that we know about now in Batman comics is actually from. It's from H.P. Lovecraft. Funnily enough, they also did an H.P. Lovecraft movie for Batman. I believe it was a few years ago. It's on Max if you haven't seen it. It's very good. And these very influential writers and stuff start really taking notice of Lovecraft's work. In the 70s, a little guy named Stephen King grows up loving Lovecraft's work so much that he becomes a writer of his own, and he promotes a bunch of books that become very successful. He starts writing Carrie and It and Cujo and all these other books that become very inspired by H.P. Lovecraft himself, and they take off. I mean, he is now a cornerstone by this point in the 70s. The 80s roll around, there's a bunch of movies about him. The 90s roll around, there's even more. And now we get into the 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, really kind of snowballing his well-known works of fiction now. And thanks to the efforts of August Derleth and Robert Bloch, right, Lovecraft's work really gains this wide audience, and he becomes now, as we know him, considered one of the most important, if not the most important, history writers of the 20th century. And his influence extends far beyond any literature. I mean, he does filmmakers, game developers, artists, all of them draw inspiration from his ideas. There's VTubers now. Like, if there was no Lovecraft, there would be no Eldritch VTubers. There would be no Tolk, right? There would be no Call of Cthulhu game. There would be no Call of Cthulhu board game. There would be no The Thing. There would be, if there was no The Thing, then you would not be getting some of these other creations that we have. I mean, there is a lot of influence that Lovecraft, I mean, him and Tolkien, I would argue, are two of the biggest influences to the fiction genre of the 20th century, if not ever. Those two really, really influence fiction in general throughout the 20th century. And it's astounding to see that two men have that much power. But there are people that are so influential, so famous, that really love Lovecraft's work. Off the top of my head, I know Guillermo del Toro says that Lovecraft is one of his big inspirations. Stephen King, obviously, who I touched on already. John Carpenter is another one, who's one of my favorite directors that loved H.P. Lovecraft, and is what inspired him to do The Thing, which is a remake of the original The Thing from Outer Space. And the 50s, really, especially with the science fiction genre, a lot of them start doing more Lovecraftian themes of science fiction. So there you go. Had me thinking, when I first read Dagon, the style felt enigmatic and mysterious. It's meant to disturb the readers because of how unnatural it is. The ocean, once of water, suddenly becomes a goo of black till it filled with dark rocks. It's like the character stumbled upon a different world, not known to the world, yet it exists. Aside from just the ability to survive, did Lovecraft want fame and wealth like the recognition he has today at levels where even Batman has a Cthulhu series? That's a good point. All right, I think he did in the back of his head. I think this is the part of his New England heritage that really is ingrained in him. He thinks, right, that New England heritage, like the bloodline of his family, is so important that it doesn't matter how poor he is. And there's actually, I forget which book it is. There is a book that, or a short story that he wrote about this like very destitute pauper, like guy who inherits like this castle from his uncle, and his uncle is, I want to say it's like the Dunwich Horror actually, but his uncle was like this very not super wealthy guy. He's like very like perverse as well, and he inherits this like old castle from his uncle, and the old house, and the the old castle is like very like decrepit and run down, and there's like this really old butler working there. I cannot remember for the life of me which book this is, but it's stuff like that, because you can literally see like he literally draws inspiration from himself for these novels, and it's insane. The way his mind just creates these stories is very gifted and tormented writer. But I think he did at the end of the day probably yearn for wanting some fame and recognition, but I think also he got it in a way, right? He got it in the way that his friends, who are very influential and important to writers in general, understood how important he was, to the point where they wanted him to be known as well. And so I think for him, his friends knowing that, I think was enough for him at the end of the day. But I'm sure there is a part of him that wanted to be as famous as, Robert Bloch became to be. But obviously, I mean, Lovecraft dies at the age of 46, right? He dies very young compared to most other writers at this time. The amount of influence that he gives to all these other people, I mean, it's insane amounts. I consider Robert E. Howard to be just as important as H.P., although Tolkien is very important to the fantasy genre. Robert's Sword and Sorcery would play a role that leads to the existence of D&D. Yes, but if it wasn't without Tolkien, I don't think Robert E. Howard... Actually, if it wasn't for Tolkien and H.P. Lovecraft, I don't think Robert E. Howard would even have made the Sword and Sorcery genre. I mean, if you were thinking about it, Tolkien was the first person to write really about folklore in the way that you do for settings like D&D. He was the person who made orcs. He was the person who made dwarves. He was the person, or not dwarves, but hobbits. He's the person who coins a lot of these terms. Like I know Robert E. Howard is very influential, and don't get me wrong, Robert E. Howard is a fantastic writer in his own realm. But I think without Tolkien and Lovecraft, I don't think you have a Robert E. Howard in this world. I really don't. Those two are so crazy for the amount of world building that they had. That without those two, I think most of our fantasy, like our fun little nerdy genres that we think about, right? I think a lot of them are not existing today. There would be no D&D. There would be no like tabletop games, essentially. Like Xenomorphs are literally based off of H.P. Lovecraft stuff. You have D&D is literally based off of Lord of the Rings. But yeah, to think about two people being so important to the history of, ridiculous amounts of fiction is insane to me. All right, so what's Lovecraft's influence on modern horror today? So he inspired writers like Stephen King, Neil Gaiman, and Clive Barker. I forget who the guy who I think Alan Moore. Alan Moore is another one that is huge. Alan Moore made The Watchmen and The Boys, and he is a very, very good writer in his own regard. But Lovecraft's influence on the modern horror is immense, right? Stephen King specifically cited him as a major inspiration, particularly for his ability to instill a sense of existential dread into his readers. Films like The Thing and Alien tap into Lovecraft's idea that the universe is filled with horrors beyond human comprehension. Video games like Bloodborne and Call of Cthulhu have brought Lovecraft's cosmic horror into new and interactive formats, which would be tabletop and video games. Lovecraft RPG as well, the tabletop. Or excuse me, not Lovecraft RPG, Call of Cthulhu RPG, the tabletop game. Lovecraft's influence is actually so great that the term Lovecraftian horror is now used to describe works that evoke a similar sense of fear of the unknown. So he literally not only just makes cosmic horror, he terms an entire genre of horror now. Not just cosmic horror, but he makes the entire cosmic horror genre, also known as Lovecraftian horror. That is his doing. That is his influence on the horror genre. And for this month specifically, I think you would be remiss if you do not mention H.P. Lovecraft in any type of any form of list for anything with horror. Even Sherlock Holmes has Lovecraftian themes, exactly, or a Lovecraftian game, yeah, exactly. Thought Robert E. Howard came before Tolkien. Oh no, brother. J.R.R. Tolkien is a old wizened man who has written The Hobbit by the time that Robert E. Howard, I think, even writes Conan. I want to say they're probably the same time. Let me make sure. Let me. Make sure I got the release date right. Because The Hobbit, I believe, releases in 1937. Yeah, September 21st, 1937. And if I look up Conan. Conan the Barbarian releases in, I think it was like 1950s, right? Or 1930s? No, it's 1950. Yeah, 1950 is whenever Conan the Conqueror comes out, which is the Hour of the Dragon. It becomes Conan the Conqueror, I believe. So yeah, no, definitely Tolkien. But I mean, they were around there at the same time. But Tolkien was largely influential in the writing scene in England more so than America. So, I mean, if you want to say American horror writers or American fantasy writers, I think he was the most important American fantasy writer, probably arguably of all time. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get back to the topic at hand. So yeah, the Cthulhu mythos actually continues to inspire adaptations across various forms of media to this day. Without none of the stuff on the screen would exist that I'm about to show you. Neither would these two. Two of my favorite things in horror. The Thing is one of my favorite horror movies, and It is one of my favorite horror novels. But Lovecraft and pop culture. Here you go. So you have the Call of Cthulhu and Arkham Horror tabletop games. Would not exist. Bloodborne would not exist. Alan Wake would not exist. Call of Cthulhu, the video game, would not exist. And that's a remake of another video game that came out earlier. Karaoke request. Bams, I am not doing karaoke. I need to turn that damn thing off. But give me your karaoke request and I'll sing it later. And Lovecraft Country, which has Jonathan Majors in it. Which is a decent show. I don't think it's the greatest show that ever came out for Lovecraft, but there's a lot of Lovecrafting. You would not have things like, oh, Wada, thank you. You would not have things like the Hellraiser series without Lovecraftian horror. You would not have anything about space without any horror set in space is essentially from Lovecraft. No karaoke, no. Bams, you're not even listening to the stream right now, bruh. Max Scam VT, shut the hell up. Do you think Lovecraft would have been writing about the satanic panic around TTRPGs on the side of the panickers? No, because he's an avowed atheist. I don't think so. Like he became very atheistic. He was not like a Protestant guy. So, which is why it's like so funny. Refund my points. No, I thought the Conan stories were published in the 1930s, but Cull came first, which was published in the late 20s. Cull. I'm not familiar with Cull. I'll have to look into it. Tolkien's influence came largely from other things that were more like fantastical in nature, though. So I think the Conan stories actually did come out in the 50s, because I don't think Robert E. Howard actually released them until posthumously. I could be wrong though, because the Conan books were written in the 1950s, I believe. Trying to remember. Probably something that is interesting. Oh, his first appearance is in Weird Tales. Okay, so it's 1932. 1932 Weird Tales. There you go. Done. No, don't actually refund her points. I said I would give. Oh my god, Bluesky, you're the worst mod ever. I hate you. No, I'm joking. No, Bams, if you wanted me to sing a song, I could sing it later. Like, I'll probably do another karaoke stream here soon. I just don't know when. Cole is the ancestor of Conan the Barbarian. He's essentially the prototype for Conan. Interesting. Okay, very interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Max Forge, I will ruin your points economy. Do not fucking ruin my points economy, you communist. You absolute terrorist. Alright, let's move on to our conclusion. So, in conclusion, H.P. Lovecraft's works have had a profound impact on the world of horror. They have shaped the genre for decades after its writing, and his themes of cosmic horror and existential dread continue to inspire writers, filmmakers, game developers, and tabletop enthusiasts till this day. However, his legacy is complicated by his deeply problematic personal views, particularly his racism and xenophobia. But as we look back on his contributions, it's important to recognize both the brilliance of his literary achievements and the flaws in his character. Thanks to him, we have a great many works of fiction that we would not have had without him. Now then, I would like to open up the floors for questions. What are your thoughts on Lovecraft's work? Do you have a favorite story or adaptation? I would like to discuss this now with my lovely chat. So chat, if you have anything about Lovecraft that you would like to share or give a question about, or your thoughts on Lovecraftian works, or if you have a favorite story or adaptation of his works, please go ahead and let me know. And I will go ahead and wait on you guys to tell me what's up. So please go ahead, chat. Go ahead. Backscan. Stupid, sexy Cthulhu. Seeing games and comics about romancing his eldritch abominations, do you think he'd be more terrified or curious, especially with his initial aversion to love? Oh, dude, he would be sickened by it. I wanted to touch on this a little bit. I think, so, H.P. Lovecraft, I would argue, is probably like, very like a romantic, asexual guy, right? He hated sex. I mean, he absolutely hated that thought of touching another human in that way. And it wasn't until he got married, his wife actually started giving him books, and the only way she could encourage him to start making love with her is by giving him a book about how to do it. And then he read it, and he was like, darling, I would like to try something with you. Like, that's actually how that went, which is insane to think about. But yeah, I think he would be absolutely horrified and disgusted with that. I think there's a lot of things in his genre he would probably not be too big of a fan about. I think the TED Talk kind of touched about it. There's a lot of the works of his nonfiction that are now heavily influenced in like Lovecraft Country is a good example. It's two black leads in a show about H.P. Lovecraft, or not a show about H.P. Lovecraft, but a show set in the Cthulhu mythos. And I think he would not be too keen on that if I had to guess. Stupid sexy Cthulhu, I already read that. My favorite adaptation is The Shadow over Innsmouth by Oxventure D&D game. I don't think I know that one. Well, Stellifus. His dream stories are not talked about often. It's not a story about cosmic horror or dealing with the unknown. It's about someone who became obsessed with his dream world to the point where he became addicted to drugs and died. Yeah, he also had an aversion for like junkies, I think, if I'm remembering right. I don't think he liked junkies very much because I think his mom became one later in life. I'm trying to remember if that's true. I might be thinking of another author though. So please don't take my word for it. Please also remember, if anything that I've said to you doesn't sound right, or you want to research it more and you want to correct me, I have a Discord. You can come in and do it, or you can just do it to me privately, either one, or you can call me out in public. I don't care. But I wanted to make sure that if there's anything in here that you wanted to know more about, or you wanted to read about, or you thought I was wrong about, please go ahead and correct me, and I will try to set the record straight. I'll research it for myself. Did Harlequin romance novels exist while he was alive? Harlequin romance novels. I don't know. I'm not familiar with Harlequin romance novels, if I'm being honest. Funny enough, Lovecraft's reoccurring character Randolph met the character of Stellifus at the Dream World. Interesting. I don't think I know. I don't think I've read that one. I've read most of his works though. Although it was whenever I was a child, and it's been a long time, and I should probably reread them because I really like his type of horror. It's very interesting to me. Anything else? Anybody else have any stories or any influences that were brought about by Mr. H.P. Lovecraft that you would like to discuss or talk about? Speak now or forever hold your peace. I'm wondering if H.P. Lovecraft ever read of H.G. Wells' works or even met the guy. H.G. Wells. I would assume so. I mean, War of the Worlds was out in what, 1898, and then you had the Orson Welles incident with which that was the War of the Worlds broadcast that happened. That would have been what, 1934? I would say. When was the War of the Worlds broadcast? (1938). So that happened after. Okay, never mind. Yeah, Orson Welles, not H.G. Wells, by the way. I would assume H.G. Wells probably he knew about H.G. Wells. He was a fairly famous author by then. As far as influence on a young H.P. Lovecraft, probably to an extent. I think H.P. Lovecraft was what, 8 whenever that came out, so he probably would have been reading it. I would argue. How do you think he'd react to the book Leagues Under the Sea? I don't remember the number. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea? I think that was already out, though, wasn't it? 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea? Jules Verne novel? Yeah, that was released in 1870, dude. I mean, he probably would have reacted normally. He didn't have... He had a lot of people try to attribute his, like, his whole writing about the ocean with like this like fear of the unknown, with like him hating the ocean, but I don't think that's true. I don't think he ever had an aversion for the ocean. I think he had an aversion for fish. Because if I'm remembering right, I want to say he was like a vegetarian or something like that, or he had like this aversion to fish because of where he grew up. I don't think he actually was afraid of the sea, because he commonly like walked up and down the coast of New England, and he would like, even whenever he was like destitute, he constantly was like going up and down the coastline. I mean, he loved the ocean. I can't fathom him being deathly afraid of the ocean, and then also you know, like walking up and down. It just seems like it would be antithetical, I guess. But yeah, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, I'm sure he probably read it, but it's more of an adventure novel than it is a horror novel, and I think he was more interested in like gothic and horror novels. Anyways, okay, chat, it's time. It's time, chat. It's time for me to make sure that I actually have this up. Let me make sure I have this. I need to do something, chat. 1 second. Does anyone have any questions about anything we went over? Love the ocean. Honestly, weird, but I thought he'd think of it as a terrifyingly large. I mean, I'm sure he thought of it as terrifyingly large and deep, but I think it's more of like a question of what's out there, right? I don't think it's like a necessary, like he had like this insane, horrifying, like fear of the ocean, like you can't touch it. I think his entire thought process would have been on it. You know, I love the ocean. I love New England. New England's my favorite place. I love Providence, Rhode Island. However, there's a big sea out there. What would happen if there was a giant celestial entity that came out of the sea? How terrified would I be about that? I mean, would it be horrifying? Would it be scary? I would think so. I really think that it's that. I think his fear of the ocean comes from its dark, unfathomable depths. If you understand, or if you ever played Subnautica, you'll understand. Yeah, Subnautica got it right. Subnautica activates my amygdala in all the wrong ways. Brother. All right, questions, comments, concerns, chat. Does anybody have any more questions about H.P. Lovecraft that I can answer for you? Or are we ready to get into the trivia? Or, excuse me, your quiz. Your quiz. Tragedy that Lovecraft and Robert died so early. It would have been interesting to hear their thoughts on Lord of the Rings or the works of Michael Moorcock, who popularized dark fantasy and the concept of the multiverse. Yeah, I think Michael Moorcock, I think, also was like heavily influenced by Lovecraft, because Lovecraft had a hand in dark fantasy, in its popularization later on. But yeah, that's an interesting prospect to think about. Certainly. All right, chat. Who's ready to answer some trivia questions for some brownie points with the teacher? Gibbsy? Gibbsy, where are you, Gibbsy? Come here. Come here, Gibbsy. It's time to answer questions. Let's see if you keep your A up. Ah, this kid isn't even in here. Man, everybody go throw a brick at Gibbsy next time you see them. Anyways, okay. I love brownie points. I know you do. Nah, I'm joking. All right. So, we have ended our section on H.P. Lovecraft. I'm going to pull up back to our main screen with my Ray plushie. I'm going to stand in the middle of class. I'm going to look, and I'm going to gaze upon my students. I'm going to gaze upon you. I'm going to say, and I'm going to say this. I'm going to say, who's ready to answer a question? Which one of you is ready to answer a question? Raise your hand. Use the max hi emote, the max hello emote, please, if you would like to answer a question. And if you don't, you're going to get an F. F. Teachers are my only friends in school. Bruh. Okay, Blue Wraith, you're the first one. All right. It's time to answer a question about H.P. Lovecraft using our special handy dandy little questionnaire. All right. So, Blue Wraith, for your first question, what is the genre? There's two names for it. You can call either one. Name one of the genres that H.P. Lovecraft popularized. And I'll give you 20 seconds to answer. Hope that's long enough. If you need a little more time. Cosmic Horror, correct. Ding, ding, ding. You're right. Correct. Very good. Very good. Oh my goodness. Clap, 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 clap. All right. 4. Your A+ in the class for today. Blue Wraith, can you tell me one of the novels that H.P. Lovecraft wrote? We went over a few. Name one novel from H.P. Lovecraft. You have a few seconds. Okay, I said one. I the color from our out of this our if this world. I'm gonna take your first one, Shadows over Innsmouth. That is correct. Call of Cthulhu is also correct, and The Color from Outer Space is the other one that you're thinking of. Not Color from our if the world. I'm just joking. Good job. Hey, clap it up. Hey, good job, chat. Good job. You did it. You did it, Blue Wraith. You have an A+ in class for the day. Very good. Very good. Very good. I'm so proud of you. You will remember someday, Dagon. Dagon's a good one. Yeah, very good, very good, very good. Yeah, thank you, Yap. Speaking of, Yap, since you're here, it's your turn for questions, Yap. I hope you're ready. I hope you're ready, Yap. I hope you're ready. Yap, you better respond, or you're gonna get an F again. I knew talking would get me singled out. Yeah, you should have kept your mouth shut, buddy boy. And don't worry, Polisica, you're next, followed by Protam. Don't you worry, boys. Yeah, exactly. All right. Yap. For your first question, you get 2 today. You get 2. Name one. I'm a TA. I don't take tests. I'm a TA. I don't take tests. Bullshit. You don't. Name one of the 4 central themes in Lovecraft's work. Name one of the central themes of Lovecraft's work. And this is for Yap. Nobody else. Don't answer. Yap, you have 30 seconds. Also, there's an ad break right now. We're waiting for Yap, everyone. We're waiting for Yap with bated breath. He's typing in his questions into Google right now, trying to find out the answer. The problem is he only has 20 more seconds to answer. One of them is fear of the unknown, that the universe is uncaring. Question mark? Are you asking me a question, or are you telling me that's your answer? Are you questioning the teacher, or are you answering the teacher's question, buddy boy? Damn, I got the softball question. Well, yeah, because you were the bravest person in class. Of course you get the softballs. Telling. Okay, you're telling me. Fear the unknown is correct. Very good, yeah. Very good job. Good job. Class. Clap, 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 clap. Yay. Good job, guys. Yay. You did it. You did it. One more question now. One more question now. Name one of the iconic creatures from the Cthulhu mythos. I mean, this is a fucking softball, bud. This is a giant softball headed right your way. So you better answer it right. In case Max asked me a question, I'm suffering from ad break. I did not ask Protam a question. It's okay. Yap. Hello, Yap. Name one of the famous creatures from the Cthulhu mythos. Cthulhu himself. Correct. Cthulhu. Very good. Yay! Class, he did it. He did it. He got an A. Another A plus in the class today. Excellent work. Excellent work, everybody. Excellent work. So good. Protam, are you back from your ad break yet? Because you're next. Unless Pelusica wants to be not a coward. Does Cthulhu have pronouns? I don't think so. I don't believe so. I think Cthulhu has no times for those. I think he's more worried about killing everything and everyone, bringing about the end times. That's just my silly thought, though. I need Protam to answer me if he's still in the ad break, which I don't know if he is or not. But if he is, we can wait. Now I'm free from the ads. Want to take a break from the ads? Subscribe. I'm joking. Unless you want. Unless you want to. Unless you want. All right. For another question. For Protam. Cthulhu's pronouns are spelled with Zalgo text. That's funny. What is the name of the publishing company that took H.P. Lovecraft's legacy and preserved it after his death? For you, Protam, this is the question. Name the publishing company that preserved H.P. Lovecraft's legacy and works after his death. We're waiting for Protam, everyone. We're waiting for Protam. We're doing very well right now. We're doing very, very well. We have not had a single question missed. Oh, Arkham. You're missing one part of it. You're missing one part of it. You want to give it another shot? I'll let you do it since you had the first half of that. Gibbsy, don't say skibbity. You skipped class, I saw. Shameful. Shake my head. Shaking my freaking head, dude. You're playing Minecraft. Or Roblox. I was busy. Nah, you can't be busy, sorry. I'm joking. I was texting someone important. Was it the president or the queen? Or excuse me, the king. There's no queen anymore. Sorry about that. Sorry, British. Sorry, Sleepy. Sorry. Arkham Publishing? I vaguely remember reading about them. Oof, you were so close. It is Arkham House Publishing. You were very close. I'll give you half credit on it. I'll let you try to get a B if you can answer this question correctly. We will try and get you a B right here, okay? That's okay. That's okay. You get half credit on it because you had half the answer. It's okay. Okay, Protam. Last question for you. Approximately how many letters did Lovecraft write in his lifetime? Approximately how many letters did Lovecraft write in his lifetime? Or you can tell me who is ahead of him in writing letters. You can tell me either who was ahead of him in the amount of letters that they wrote, or you can tell me his exact, or approximate, rather, number of letters that he sent. Gibbsy, you're about to get an F in this class if you don't answer the next 2 questions right, by the way. This is for Pro-Tam right now, though. 50? 50 letters? You think 50 letters? Ooh, I'm sorry. It's not 50 letters. It's not 50. It's not 50 letters. It was not. It was. He has the second most in history at nearly 100,000 letters. 100,000. Second only to the great Voltaire. So we're going to give you a D for today, unfortunately for you, but you did still pass the class. I will say that you did talk the most in class too, so you asked a lot of questions as well, so I'll give you some extra credit for it. So you get a D+. So we have 2 A+ and a D+. So everyone's passing so far, which is okay. A+, A+, and a D+. Very good. All right, Gibbsy, your 2 questions are as follows. What is the name of one of the authors of the Cthulhu mythos? You can name any of the 4. Any of the 4. Brother, I wasn't here. Well, should have been attending class then, dum-dum. Surely you can name one person who wrote the Cthulhu mythos. Surely there was not somebody that we just did an entire presentation on. Surely there's no one else you could pick. Surely. Was it Scooby-Doo guy? Who's Scooby-Doo guy? Name him. What's his name? We're waiting. Class is waiting for you. What is Scooby-Doo guy's name? The fact that you know him as Scooby-Doo guy is crazy to me, by the way. That's absolutely insane. That's unhinged, I would argue. H.P. Lovecraft? Correct. Yes, that is correct. All right, Gibbsy. This is the difference between you getting a C or an A. Your last question. Where was H.P. Lovecraft born? Where was H.P. Lovecraft born? Live, laugh, love, Scooby-Doo. Jesus. Makes sense. England. Oi up England. We love England here. Where was H.P. Lovecraft born? And don't you dare use the damn Google, because I can see you typing it right now. I can see you typing it in. I don't know, man. He's probably British. You're wrong. You're wrong. He's not British. It's the most H.P. Lovecraft location. Correct. I've actually been to his gravesite. It was pretty cool. It was pretty interesting. I'm surprised there's not like a museum or anything. Well, he looks British. That's because he's Anglo-Saxon. There's a lot of people who look British, by the way, in America. It's because their families are from England. Okay, Gibbsy, you're about to get an F in the class just for that question. Just for that question, you're about to get an F. What is a saxon? It's a son who plays the saxophone, obviously. Okay, you get a C. You get a C. You get a C. You get a C. C for Gibbsy. Shout out to Aurora for an A+. And shout out to Yap for an A+ as well. And for being an awesome artist. My favorite guy. Pro-Tam, congratulations on your D+ and not failing the class. I am so very happy that you did not fail the class. And because this is our first time without any Fs, by the way. Very good, very good, very good. And Gibbsy, you get a C. And at the end of the year, I will have a end of year report card for everybody. So, and it's going to include all of your scores. So, at the moment, this is what we have for today. A+ for Aurora, A+ for Yap, D+ for Protam, C for Gibbsy. Very good. Actually, that is a question I had. What the fuck is an Anglo-Saxon? Word science wise. So Anglo means Anglican, or English, right? So it's like how like Chinese is always like Sino, and Russian is like Russo. It's like a, I forget what the term is, but it's like I guess a conjugate verb. And Saxon means someone from Saxony. Saxony is a place in France. And the reason why they're called Anglo-Saxons is because the English that were there before, known as the, oh my goodness, what is the term for them? The Anglo-Saxons are English people who mixed with Saxons after the conquering of England by William the Conqueror, and then they became the English. Gibbsy, you're about to get timed out. That's it. Take that child's remote away. That's what I thought. Oh, wow. That's it, buddy. Oh, I've had it. Oh, I've had it, Buster Brown. Bluesky, suspend the child. No, let them waste the points. True. Yeah, of course. Yeah, anytime. The points economy must recover. Yeah, actually. Okay, I spend it all. Bruh. Sits in class all day, doesn't learn a damn thing, but uses all the points to bonk me. Yikes. You could have led a raid. You could have done anything. My goodness. Commercial break. Bruh has a Reese, a me, and a them. This is ridiculous. But I don't care about no damn raid. Yeah, you should. You should care about rating. Rating is very important to the economy now. Okay. All right, guys. Well, that's been about 2 hours almost. I'd say we had a pretty successful stream. Did you guys enjoy the HP Lovecraft lesson? Did you guys enjoy it? I hope I did a good enough job for you guys. I worry sometimes that my stuff isn't as terrifyingly interesting as I wanted it to be. But if you guys enjoyed it, please let me know. I'd love to hear any feedback about it. If you have any suggestions or anything, please let me know in the comments below. There's a suggestion box down there. Also, if you want to join the Discord, I have a Discord that is right here. If you'd like to join in, I really did. You're a fun teacher, and I played Cult of the Lamb. Very cool. I appreciate it. If you'd like to join the Discord, you can join in that link right there. If you would like to follow me on any social media, you may follow me right here on X and on YouTube. I will be uploading some shorts there shortly on YouTube, that is. And X, I post there pretty often, so if you don't...
What the hell?
Oh, sound the alarm, there's a raid.
Oh my god. Hello, everybody. Hi, Puffy.
Zap Huffy Fist just rated us with 6 viewers.
Hi, Puffy. How was Destiny 2, I guess? Was it good? I hope so. I hope it was good for you. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed Destiny 2. But yeah, I appreciate everybody coming. Oh, Warframe. Oh, different. Ooh, different. You changed it up on me. You switched from one free-to-play game to another. You joined at a most opportune time. We're about to end, actually. So give me 1 second, guys. Sorry about that, guys. Somebody knocked on my door. Yeah, so I'm not going to end just yet. I'll save for a little bit. I like the spooky carnivals. Is there anyone who popularized the spooky carnivals? Are you talking about, like, Halloween events? Probably. I don't know. I could study that. I'm actually looking for suggestions. So, guys, if you guys are watching, also, welcome in everybody from the raid. Sorry about that. That was an inopportune time. If you need to get water, food, drink, anything like that, or just need to take a rest, please go ahead and do so. Puffy, I know you're probably tired from doing all this shit. I appreciate you coming in, brother, as always. But if you guys have anything that you want to suggest for a history lesson, I'm more than willing to do a non-Wednesday history lesson. If you guys don't know, I don't have a job right now, so as I'm looking for jobs during the day, at night I'll be streaming a little bit more, so that way I can kind of focus on the other career at the time being. But if you guys have any suggestions for any type of history lesson, or a suggested time for another history lesson, or anyone you want to see me collab with or anything, suggestion box down below. You can join the Discord. You can message me on Twitter or X, whichever one you want to call it. I'm on all three of them and I respond all the time. If you don't have anything that you really want to know about, or if you just want to see me play a certain game, I will be streaming more often. So if you have something for Saturday, or a spooky game that you want to recommend for me to play, or you just want to see me shit my pants a little bit on stream because it's funny, I get it. I'm a very big scaredy cat. Collab with a funny guy named Z Puffyfish, says Z Puffyfish. Bruh. For sure. Yeah, for sure. We definitely got to get one in, for sure. I'm totally down. I just need to find a good time to do it. I feel like every single time we're trying to plan something, it's always like a very bad time for me. But we'll definitely get it. Probably next week. Probably next week will be going. Writers like Stephen King or Dan Simmons for the next horror writer topic. Simmons wrote The Terror, which got adapted into a show. I have seen The Terror. The Terror is very interesting. I like that show a lot. I like Spooky Carnivals. I already read that. Scooby-Doo History Now. Halloween. History of Corn Mazes. Oh my gosh, guys. You have to write it in the suggestion box. How am I going to remember all of these? I can't write these down. I don't have a pen and paper. I would really love a history of Halloween events. Yeah, including corn mazes. Okay, sure. Yeah, write it in the suggestion box. Or DM it to me. Either one. Other than that, though, guys, Z Puffy Love. Thank you very much, Puffy. Thank you very much. Okay, so, if there's anything else you guys want to see me play, I'm a big scary cat, and I get very scared easily. So, like yesterday, I was playing Faith, and I got jump scared like a lot. So it was fun. I like playing it. But so the rest of the week is looking like this. Tomorrow, we have a collab with Amanagawa Haru. Shout out to her. She is almost at fucking hundreds followers already. I'm so surprised by that, dude. It's insane how fast she's grown. Amanagawa. Oh, shit. Hold up. 1 second. At Haru. There we go. Shout out to Haru. Oshiharu. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I can't write in the suggestions. Wait, you can't write in the suggestions. You can't? Really? Is that why people haven't been writing in that? Oh boy, I think I'm about to get rid of it then. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Well, you can join the Discord if you wanted to, and I have a suggestions tab on there as well, I think. If I don't, Pelusica can add it for me. Winky face, winky face, winky face. But if you guys would like to follow Miss Haru, we're going to be doing a stream together tomorrow. We're going to be playing some Project Zomboid. I'm very excited for that. It's going to be a real rip-roaring fun time, I believe. So outside of that, I think, okay, it fixed. Oh, okay, sweet. Excellent. Sweet. I'm glad it's fixed now. Outside of that, though, guys, any other suggestions that you might have, anything you want me to cover, anything you want me to play, anything you want me to change about the stream, or something you don't like, or any criticisms, anything about my history teaching lessons. If you think something I taught was wrong or incorrect, or you just don't like it, please feel free to call me out for it. This whole thing is about learning and getting people more into history. So if there's something I covered wrong and you wanted to correct the record, or you wanted someone to correct it on stream, please do so. I have the utmost respect for anyone who actually likes history and gets into it and wants to correct me, because I'm such a history fan. Obviously I'm not a teacher or anything, like an actual teacher. I just do topics of history and I cover them. So, but like I said, I do study and I do make these topics up off the top of my head. So there might be something I skipped, might be something I missed, might be a source that I used that was not correct or you didn't like. Also, I need to share my sources list with you. My source, right? I use Encyclopedia Britannica. I use encyclopedia.com, thought.co, biography of H.P. Lovecraft, American writer. I use biographics.org for H.P. Lovecraft biography, author of horror, macabre fantasy. And I also use H.P. Lovecraft's own letters and writings. So make sure that you guys get those on here. Yeah, Max, I need an annotated bibliography. Okay, I can do that. I would love to, except for PowerPoint doesn't want me to use it anymore. So I'll make sure I go buy a subscription for Microsoft so that I can get punched in the face for months on end with giant charges that I don't want. Anyways, so right now, guys, we're gonna go raid someone else. I don't know who yet. I'm gonna go see who's on. Let me go check. I hope Tolk's on. If Tolk's on, I'm gonna go raid Tolk. But for now, let's see who we got here. I got Cleo's on, Lamari's on, Bog is on, Aki's on, and another friend's on. You guys want to do a different channel? Do you guys want to do somebody I don't follow? Perhaps? There's apparently a streamer that's debuting right now. Do we want to go watch a debut streamer, guys? How do we feel about a debut streamer? Do we want to go make their day? See if we can get some more views for them? I don't know what they're like. I have no idea anything about them. There's the Penguin Classic Publishing that published the anthology of H.P. Lovecraft's works. It also did biography of H.P. Lovecraft's life, and there's even afterwards and references that discussed about his works. Yes. I was saying my sources, though, like stuff that I used. I never used the Penguin Classics. I know Penguin Classics did a lot of his stuff, though. How do we feel about if you don't do a history on Club Penguin? Gibbsy, you're not even going to show up for it, so why am I even listening to you? How about that? How about that, dude? Let's go see a debut. Okay, sweet. Libra Themis. Let's see.
It's incredible.
Okay.
We love you. Thank you for being here.
I don't know what the hell they are. They're from Australia.
You've seen everything.
Let's just go raid them. I don't care. So,
that is
guys, if you guys want to, please go ahead and use our raid message here.
In the world that Libra the character
that
comes
is
from,
also probably not correct because I did not change it between today and yesterday.
I have a little panel,
and it's wrong,
actually.
So don't use the raid message
If I go to Twitch,
to do this.
and then I go...
We're doing this right here. It's this one. Okay, guys. If you guys want to use that raid message, we're going to get in there. As always, you can follow me on socials and come join our Discord. We will love to have you around. I'm going to turn this person off because I forgot that their sound's coming through my computer. But guys, as always, I love and appreciate every single one of you. I appreciate you guys' candidness with me. I'm glad you guys liked what we did today, and I'll try to do it more for the rest of the month. We're going to be doing a lot more streams. Friday, I think I'm open again, but I might try to find someone else to collab with. Irvine's computer died, so we're not doing a Friday stream. Remember, tomorrow, 4 p.m., tomorrow at 4 p.m. Central Time. If you're not there, I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry. I'm going to pee my pants. We're going to be playing Project Zomboid, so please remember that. As always, guys, I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate all the love and support, as always. You all are my heroes.
Look at that notif. Look at that notif. Hi, Max. Hi. Welcome in. You're just a